In a world where skills build futures, education must open doors for everyone. Welcome to Inclusive Education in TVET, where diversity is not a barrier but a strength. I am Sir Rainer F. Areja, and together with me is Sir Leomar C. Binyas, and today we will be discussing instructional strategies for inclusive technical vocational education and training, empowering diverse learners through effective teaching methods. Inclusive technical and vocational and training is founded on the principle that all learners, regardless of ability, background, gender, or socioeconomic status, should have equitable access to quality skills development and meaningful employment opportunities. The rationale for inclusive instruction in Tibet is both social and economic. From a social perspective, inclusive Tibet supports social justice by reducing barriers faced by learners with disabilities, learning difficulties, or marginalized backgrounds. Economically, it contributes to workplace development by ensuring that a broader segment of the population can acquire relevant job ready skills. Research by UNESCO Univoc highlights that inclusive TVET systems are more resilient and responsive to labor market needs because they draw a diverse talent pool. Inclusive instruction also aligns with global frameworks such as the Sustainable Development Goal 4, which emphasizes inclusive and equitable quality education and lifelong learning. In practical TVET settings, inclusivity means designing instruction that accommodates different learning paces, prior experiences, and physical or cognitive needs. For example, in a welding or automotive servicing class, learners may vary significantly in motor skills, literacy levels, or confidence. Inclusive strategies allow trainees to scaffold learning so that all trainees can achieve competency standards. Furthermore, research indicates that inclusive instructional environments improve learner motivation, reduce dropout rates, and enhance employability outcomes. By adopting inclusive instructional strategies, TVET institutions not only comply with policy mandates but also improve training effectiveness, industry relevance. Thus, inclusive instruction is not an add on but a core requirement for modern, high quality TVET systems. Clearly defined learning outcomes are essential in an inclusive TVET module because they guide instruction, assessment, and learner expectations, while allowing flexibility in how competencies are achieved. The learning outcomes of this module focuses on both pedagogical understanding and practical applications. First, participants are expected to explain key instructional strategies that support inclusive learning environments in Tibet contexts. This includes understanding why traditional one size fits all instruction is insufficient for diverse learner populations. Second, learners should be able to identify major educational theories and proponents that underpin inclusive instructional strategies, enabling them to justify their teaching practices using research based foundations. Third, participants are expected to apply differentiated, student centered, experiential, cooperative, problem based, and work based learning strategies in a simulated or real TVET settings. This application oriented outcome is critical as TVET emphasizes performance and competency rather than theoretical knowledge alone. Another important outcome is the ability to design inclusive, industry relevant learning activities that align with training regulation and occupational standards while accommodating learner diversity. Research in outcomes based education shows that when learning outcomes are explicit and aligned with assessment, learners demonstrate higher achievement and confidence. In inclusive TVET, outcomes should focus on what learners can do, not how they all get there. By achieving these learning outcomes, TVET trainers become better equipped to support diverse learners, improve training completion rates, and contribute to inclusive workforce development. Moving on, these are some of the educational theories supporting inclusive TVET. Inclusive instructional strategies in TVET are grounded in well established educational theories that emphasize active, social, and contextualized learning. Constructivism, associated with Jean Piaget, posits that learners actively construct knowledge based on prior experiences. In TVET, this means recognizing that learners bring varying levels of workplace exposure and skills that influence how they learn new competencies. Social constructivism, advanced by Lev Vygotsky, further emphasizes the role of social interaction, collaboration, and scaffolding, which are especially relevant in workshop based and team oriented training environments. Experiential learning theory proposed by David Kolb is particularly central to TVET because it frames learning as a cycle of concrete experience, reflection, contextualization, and experimentation. This theory supports hands-on training, simulations, and skills practice. Furthermore, Howard Gardner's multiple intelligences theory reinforces inclusivity by recognizing that learners have different strengths, such as spatial, bodily kinesthetics, or interpersonal intelligences, all of which are valuable in vocational contexts. Finally, situated learning theory by Love and Winger explains that learning is most effective when it comes in authentic contexts such as real or simulated workplaces. Together, these theories provide a strong, research based foundation for inclusive TVET, justifying instructional strategies that are flexible, learner centered, collaborative, and aligned with real world practices. Learner centered and adaptive strategies. Differentiated instruction in TVET, student centered learning for inclusive training, experiential learning, and skills development. How do you understand when you say differentiated instruction or DI in a TVET context? DI or differentiated instruction is a core strategy for inclusive TVET because it directly addresses learner diversity in skills, readiness, interests, and learning profiles. Popularized by Carol Ann Tomlinson, differentiated instruction involves modifying content, learning processes, products, and the learning environment to ensure that all learners can access and demonstrate learning. In TVET settings, differentiation may include providing varied task complexity in workshop activities, allowing learners to progress at different paces, or offering multiple ways to demonstrate competency, such as practical demonstrations, oral explanations, or visual presentations. The strategy is grounded in constructivist theory and Gardner's multiple intelligences, which emphasize that learners do not learn in identical ways. Research shows that differentiated instruction increases engagement and reduces frustration among learners with differing abilities, particularly in skills based education. For example, in a carpentry class, advanced learners may design a full project plan while beginning focus on mastering basic joints. Importantly, differentiation does not mean lowering standards. All learners work toward the same competency standards but through flexible pathways. In inclusive TVET, DI or differentiated instruction supports learners with disabilities, language barriers, or limited prior experience while still challenging high performing trainees. While implemented effectively, when, inf- um, when implemented effectively, it creates a supportive learning environment where diversity is seen as an asset rather than a problem. Let's move on to student centered learning for inclusive training. Student centered learning shifts the focus of instruction from the trainer to the learners, emphasizing active participation, autonomy, and responsibility for learning. Rooted in Carl Rogers' humanistic learning theory, this approach views learners as capable individuals who learn best when they are respected, motivated, and involved in decision making. In TVET contexts, student centered learning can be implemented through learner choice in projects, self paced modules, individual learning plans, and reflective activities. Research in vocational education indicates that student centered approaches improve motivation, persistence, and skills mastery, particularly among adult learners and those with prior negative schooling experiences. For inclusive TVET, student centered learning is critical because it allows learners to build on their strengths and personal goals while accommodating their different needs. For instance, trainees may choose industry related projects that align with their interests or future employment plans. The trainers' roles shift from information provider to facilitator and coach, offering guidance, feedback, and support. This approach also fosters lifelong learning, skills such as self regulation, problem solving, and adaptability, which are essential in a rapidly changing labor markets. By empowering learners and valuing their voices, student centered learning contributes to more inclusive, engaging, and effective TVET programs. Experiential learning is a foundational strategy in TVET because it aligns closely with how vocational skills are acquired and transferred to the workplace. David Kolb's experiential learning theory describes learning as a cyclical process involving concrete experience, reflective observation, abstract conceptualization, and active experimentation. In TVET, the cycle is evident when learners perform a task, reflect on their performance, understanding underlying principles, and apply improvements. Experiential learning includes hands on workshops, simulations, role playing, and practical demonstrations. Research consistently shows that experiential approaches lead to a deeper understanding and a better retention of skills compared to purely theoretical instruction. For inclusive TVET, experiential learning is particularly effective because it accommodates learners who may struggle with text heavy or lecture based methods. For example, learners with limited literacy skills can still excel through demonstration and practice. Additionally, experiential learning builds confidence and work readiness by exposing learners to realistic tasks and challenges. When combined with guided reflection and feedback, it helps learners understand not only how to perform tasks, but also why procedure matters. This makes experiential learning a powerful, research supported strategy for inclusive and effective TVET instruction. Okay, for the next topic, I will be turning it over to my co-reporter, Sir Leomar Binyas. Pause.
To continue our presentation, I am Mr. Leo Marbinas, and I'm going to talk about cooperative learning in TVET settings, problem-based learning for workplace readiness, and assessment strategies in inclusive TVET. Cooperative learning. When we say cooperative learning, it involves structured group work where learners collaborate to achieve shared learning goals while being individually accountable. Developed by David and Roger Johnson, this strategy is grounded in social constructivism and social interdependence theory. In TVET environments, cooperative learning reflects real workplace practices where teamwork, communication, and coordination are essential. Example: in a group fabrication project, team based troubleshooting, and peer mentoring arrangements, research indicates that cooperative learning improves academic achievement, social skills, and inclusion, particularly for learners with disabilities or low confidence. For inclusive TVET, cooperative learning helps reduce isolation by fostering peer support and mutual respect. Trainers play a crucial role in structuring groups, assigning roles, and ensuring positive interdependence so that all members contribute meaningfully. For instance, roles such as safety officer, materials manager, or quality checker allow learners with different strengths and participate effectively. By learning together, trainees develop not only technical competence but also collaboration and conflict resolution. Cooperative learning that supports both inclusion and industry relevance in TVET programs. Next is the problem based learning, or the PBL. It is an instructional approach where learning begins with complex or real world problems rather than direct instruction. This is developed by Howard Barrows. PBL is rooted in constructivist and situated learning theories. In Tibet, PBL is particularly effective because it mirrors workplace conditions where problems are often ill defined and require critical thinking, collaboration, and practical decision making. Examples include diagnosing equipment malfunctions, responding to customer complaints, or planning production processes. Research shows that PBL enhances problem solving skills, motivation, and knowledge transfer to real work situations. For inclusive TVET, PBL allows learners with different strengths to contribute in diverse ways, such as analyzing data, performing hands on tasks, or communicating solutions. Trainers act as a facilitator who guide inquiry, ask probing questions, and support reflection. While PBL can be challenging to implement, especially for learners unfamiliar with open ended tasks, proper scaffolding and group support make it highly inclusive and effective. Ultimately, PBL prepares TVET learners for the complexity and unpredictability of modern workplaces. Another one is the assessment strategies in inclusive TVET. So, assessment in inclusive TVET must align with instructional strategies and focus in demonstrating competencies rather than solely testing theoretical knowledge. Research based inclusive assessment practices emphasize performance based assessment, authentic tasks, and multiple forms of evidence. Examples include skills demonstration, practical exams, portfolios, simulations, peer assessments, and reflective journals. These methods are consistent with outcome based education and experiential learning. Inclusive assessment allows learners to show that they can do ways that match their strengths, reducing bias against those with test anxiety, language difficulties, or learning disabilities. For instance, a learner may demonstrate competency in electrical installation through hands on work rather than written test alone. Peer and self assessment also promote reflection, responsibility, and collaborative learning. Trainers must ensure that assessment criteria are clear, transparent, and aligned with industry standards, while remaining flexible in evidence collection. By using inclusive assessment strategies, the VET programs can more accurately measure competence, support learners' confidence, and improve completion and employment outcomes. So, work based learning for inclusive employability, integration of inclusive strategies, key takeaways, and implications for the VET trainers. So, work based learning, or WBL, integrates classroom instruction with real or simulated workplace experiences, making it a cornerstone of inclusive development. Grounded in situated learning theory and the concept of communities of practice by Lave and Winger, the WBL emphasizes learning through participation in authentic work activities. Example includes apprenticeship, on the job training, industry immersion, and dual training systems. Research demonstrates that WBL improves employability, job matching, and school to work transitions, particularly for disadvantaged learners. For inclusive TVET, WBL provides opportunities for learners to develop technical skills, work habits, and social competence in real contexts. It also helps learners with disabilities or limited academic background demonstrate their capability to employers. Effective WBL requires strong partnership between TVET institutions and industry, as well as proper learning support and monitoring. When designed exclusively, WBL bridges the gap between training and employment and ensures that all learners have a pathway to meaningful work. Inclusive TVET is most effective when instructional strategies are not used in isolation but integrated in a coherent teaching approach. Differentiated instruction, student centered learning, experiential learning, cooperative learning, problem based learning, and work based learning complement each other and address different aspects of learner diversity. For example, a TVET trainer may differentiate tasks within a cooperative group, working on a problem based project that is connected to workplace practice. Research supports blended instructional models that combine multiple strategies to enhance engagement and learning outcomes. Integration allows trainers to respond flexibly to learner needs, training contexts, and industry requirements. It also supports alignment between instruction, assessment, and competency standards. For an inclusive perspective, integration ensures that learners have multiple entry points to learning and multiple ways to succeed. Trainers must therefore develop pedagogical competence, reflective practice, and openness to innovation. Integrated inclusive instruction transforms the VET classrooms and workshops into dynamic, supportive learning environments. The key takeaway from this presentation is that inclusive instructional strategies are essential for effective, equitable, and industry relevant TVET. Research based approaches such as differentiated instruction, student centered learning, experiential learning, cooperative learning, problem based learning, and work based learning addresses learner diversity while strengthening skills development and employability. These strategies are grounded in established educational theories, providing a strong foundation for professional practice. For TVET trainers, adopting inclusive strategies requires a shift in mindset from delivering content to facilitating learning. It also involves continuous reflection, collaboration with colleagues, and engagement with industry partners. Inclusive instruction benefits not only learners with additional needs, but also trainees by creating flexible, engaging, and authentic learning experiences. Ultimately, inclusive TVET contributes to social inclusion, economic development, and lifelong learning. Trainers who apply these strategies plays a crucial role in preparing a competent, adaptable, and inclusive workforce for the future. As we move forward, let us remember true education is measured not only by knowledge gained, but by the lives we uplift along the way. Inclusive education in Tibet is more than a goal, it is a commitment to equity, empowerment, and opportunity for all. By embracing diversity and breaking down barriers, we create learning spaces where every individual can succeed and contribute meaningfully to society. Together, we can continue to build systems that value every learner, support every journey, and celebrate every achievement. Because in inclusive Tibet, no dream is too small and no one is left behind. Thank you for being part of this movement towards a more inclusive and skilled future. Once again, this is Mr. Leo Marbinas with my co presenter, Dr. Rainer F. Ereje. Have a great day. Thank you for listening.